those who have been the beneficiaries of this. Today, I have a very special guest on our AURN platform, and I'm excited to have on Nicole Austin-Hillery. She is the president and CEO of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, and she is here to discuss the upcoming 52nd Annual Legislative Conference, an event that promises to be significant in forum to addressing critical issues affecting the Black community. Nicole, welcome to AURN.
Hello, and thank you for having me on to talk about this important conference. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. This is one of the largest policy conferences that address African American issues. And this year's theme is securing our democracy, a word that we have heard all throughout the year, protecting our freedoms and uplifting our culture. Can you explain what inspired that theme and why it's particularly important right now?
Well, I'm so glad that you started our conversation with this. As you said, we are in critically challenging times for Black America. And let me also just say this. I like to say that we actually have put on the largest Black public policy conference in the country. Some of your listeners, people can email me and tell me if there's a bigger one. I don't think there is. But we focus on this theme of securing our democracy, protecting our freedoms, and uplifting our culture because of the issues we're facing as a Black community, not just in the United States, but throughout the globe, if we want to be accurate. We are on the eve of another election year. We are continuing to see myriad states around the country that are changing election laws that are going to make it harder for Black and brown people to vote, for older people to vote, for people who are economically challenged to vote. We see state legislatures around the country changing rules almost daily. We see the continued killings of Black bodies in the streets at the hands of law enforcement. We see community water rights being challenged, communities not having fresh water, communities having food deserts. We see health disparities. There are reports out now that show that even if you control for income and education, Black women are dying at a higher rate during childbirth than any other group, even more so than poor white women comparatively. These are serious issues, Ebony, and we have to focus as a community on these issues and then talk about and figure out how we face them and what the solutions are. And that's what our annual legislative conference is about. And because all of those things are rights. If you look at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it lays out that voting rights are rights, education rights, right to housing, right to clean water, all of those things are rights. And so we are interested in making sure that we are talking about how do we protect them all for the benefit of our community. So now more than ever, we need to come together and we need to figure out how do we strengthen the community and how do we move our community forward to be even more fully empowered.
Man, you mentioned so much there, and I know there are going to be, is it like over 100 different sessions that people will be able to see? The conference starts on the 20th for those
Yes.
who want to know, and most people already know, honestly, about this conference, and we look forward every year, and it is because, like you said, there's been so much that has happened in our community, and there's so much
Yes.
that we have that we're fighting for, voting rights, student loan debt removal. We saw the attack what happened with the Supreme Courts, and so I would say this is a time where this is almost like a brain trust coming together to talk about these issues and where do we go from here. Are there any sessions that you're looking forward to especially?
Well, I will tell you this, and let me also just follow up on what you said about everybody knowing about it. That's the part that really speaks to the uplifting our culture part of our theme. Because it is so important to our culture that we come together as a community to not only address issues, but also to rejoice and find joy in our successes and in the beauty of our community, and in the togetherness. That's why we tied all of those themes together. So I didn't want that to go unaddressed. But if you're, there's so many, as you said, we have hundreds of brain trusts and panels that are going on. But if there's one I'd want to hold up in particular, it would be our town hall discussion, which is going to be on Thursday, September 21st from 9 to 11 at the Walter E. Washington Convention Center here in Washington. The town hall is really what I like to call the main plenary session. The town hall is going to be a culmination of work really that is a follow-up on work that the Congressional Black Caucus members have been engaged in over the last few months. Our CBC chair, Stephen Horsford, held several months ago a summit on democracy and race. And as a result of that summit, he and other members put together a 10-city tour focusing on democracy issues where they went around the country, meeting with community members, meeting with grassroots folks to talk about what are these issues and how are they showing up in your community and what do you need from your elected officials to help resolve them. And so this town hall discussion is going to be focusing on democracy and race issues, and it will be a follow-up on those conversations. We wanted to make sure that we were connecting the dots on what the legislators were trying to do in terms of uplifting the community, and then what our role is as the foundation in creating space and a forum for those discussions to happen. And that discussion will include policy experts, scholarly academics, and members of the CBC. So that's one in particular that I would lift up. It really will set the stage for all of the other discussions that will be available to our attendees.
That's one, actually, I'm glad you mentioned the town hall. I always look forward to the town hall. So that's one me personally, I absolutely will be at and look forward to. Delegate Stacey Plaskett and Senator Raphael Warnock are serving as the honorary co-chairs of this year for the conference. What unique perspective do you believe that they bring this year?
Oh, several things. First of all, Delegate Plaskett, as you know, has a Caribbean background and heritage. It is so important because our mission here at the CBCF is empowering the global Black community. We don't want people to miss that. We, as a Black community, have to focus on the entire diaspora. It is not just about what happens to our brothers and sisters here in the United States. It is what is happening to our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean, what is happening to our brothers and sisters in Africa. And we will have panel sessions that will focus on those international connections and what we need to be doing in terms of foreign policy as a Black community here in the United States. So she really represents that larger diaspora and how we tie it all together, again, to focus on empowering the global Black community. And then Senator Warnock.
Can I interrupt you before you go on? Because I want to stay there for just a second. And that is because I want people to really understand when you make that point, that when we talk about closing the financial wealth gap, it is important that we have a global lens when we do that.
Absolutely.
And that when we invest in our global brothers and sisters, we are also investing in our own self, and that increases our wealth. So when you said that, I was like, that is such a key to helping to close this gap.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. And we have to make sure that we are supporting Black entrepreneurship at every level and throughout the globe. So I'm dropping the mic, Ebony, on that one.
Senator Raphael Warnock.
Yeah, so Senator Warnock, of course, he holds such a key position as being a Black senator from the state of Georgia. And we all know, we lived through it. We saw the historical moment involved in his election. He is just representative of the fight for voting rights. He is representative of the fight for diversity around the country and diversity in terms of representation. And Ebony, that's one of the other big issues that we're going to be focusing on. We know that the concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion is under severe attack in this country right now. We are going to be having panels on that. The chairman of the CBC, Mr. Stephen Horsford, one of his panels is on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And for the first time on the main stage in our exhibit hall, we are going to have a fireside chat on the battle for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Simone Sanders from MSNBC is going to be the moderator for that. And we are going to have representatives from corporations and from other organizations that are fighting for equity in terms of Black businesses and entrepreneurship and education. And of course, we know affirmative action is under attack. So the whole concept of how do we provide an equitable community is going to be on display. But Senator Warnock, back to your original question, he represents that in terms of his momentous election and how he came to be in this position and what all of that represents.
Now, the conference will also host a session on redesigning public safety. In your opinion, what needs to be done to change policing in America, particularly in our communities, our Black and Brown communities?
Ebony, we have a division at the foundation called our Center for Policy Analysis and Research. We call it CPAR for short. That's the acronym. One of the things that we started last year in that division is we did community conversations around the country because we felt it was important for us to get outside the Beltway as the foundation and to actually meet folks where they live and breathe and work and go to school. And the first of our community conversations was in Detroit, Michigan last year, and it was on how do you make safety public? And the thing that we realized, and to answer your question, what we have to do, and that's what we held up in that community conversation, what we have to do first and foremost is be on the ground in the communities and listen. So many of us are, we're well educated, we have these degrees, we have these fancy titles, and granted, people have worked hard and earned those, but we, even with our scholarly and academic work and our policy backgrounds, we've got to start with the community and listen to them and hear them out when they say, this is what we need. This is how we make our lives better. This is how we feel safer. That's where it has to start. And then making sure that those community voices are never lost, that throughout the process, regardless of what decisions policymakers are putting into place, the community has to be around the table and their voices, frankly, need to be in the forefront. And I think that's where we have to start in terms of solving those problems.
Now, you've done so much throughout your career and worked extensively when it comes to human rights. And so I want to ask you about being in that space as a woman. And then with this conference, there's going to be a session that talks about leveraging the power of Black women. And as I ask that question, I think about the attacks that have been happening with Judge Chutkan in the Trump impeachment case, and DA Fani Willis, and just the constant attack that we have. But we also see Black women rising to such amazing levels, from the Supreme Court, Justice Andre Brown Jackson, even in Congress with Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, these amazing spaces that we are in. But talk about this session that's going to be talking about how Black women can leverage their power.
It's such an important session because look, let me start with this. I'm going to be real clear. Black women have always been at the heart of strengthening, developing, encouraging, and protecting our communities, working side by side and in hand with our brothers. But we have a special place and a special position, and it is to be honored and it is to be respected. And that's one of the first things that's going to be the outcome of that session. That's number one. But number two, it's important for us to strategize and talk about how do we protect our Black women. And when I say protect them, look, sisters are strong, but we have to ensure that we are making certain that we are given respect and honor, that our issues are at the forefront, that they're not being ignored. Like, for example, when I mentioned to you earlier, the statistic on maternal deaths for Black women, even when they're well educated and have good incomes, those are issues that need research. When we have different agencies, the CDC, et cetera, doing research, we need to be making sure that they're researching those issues that are going to help Black women in our communities. We know that with respect to breast cancer, Black women are dying at much higher numbers and at much younger ages in comparison to other women. So that session is going to be about how do we center the focus on Black women, how do we uplift them, how do we strengthen them, and how do we ensure that our issues are staying in the forefront and are not being ignored. Because when our issues are ignored, frankly, our women die. Our women die, our communities die, our children are left without the support they need. So these are life and death issues when we are talking about Black women and how we protect them, encourage them, and uplift them.
I think that's such an important comment that you made. There was a study that was done several years ago by the World Bank, and I always remember it. And it said that countries and nations lose trillions of dollars when they don't invest in their women and girls.
Yes.
Like
Yes,
they
absolutely.
lose out when they don't bet on us, right? And so
Exactly.
I think that's what
Exactly.
call for men to pay attention. And so, and it also talked about what happens when women run and when women rule, and even in business, what issues are brought to the forefront that would
Exactly.
not normally be. So I'm really looking forward that one also.
Good.
Um,
Great.
I do have a question about this conference. When it is over, what's the strategy for maintaining
Mm.
this amazing momentum and then implementing some of the ideas that are to be discussed?
I'm so glad you asked that question because one of the things that I have been saying, and my team, I know they're probably tired of hearing me say it, but I've been saying it to everyone since I came to the foundation a year ago as president and CEO, which is such a privilege for me. But I tell people one of the reasons that I'm here and why this work is so important to me is because the work that we do in these 4 days in September is work that has to continue 365 days a year. And I want to make sure part of my vision and my goal in this role is to ensure that people are touched by the foundation and see our impact throughout the year beyond these 4 days. These 4 days are a culmination of what we do all year and of the work that the members do. And it is to highlight them and highlight that critical work and bring our folks together. But everything can't be resolved in 4 days. So, going back to the Center for Policy Analysis and Research that we have here at the foundation, that is the heart of our policy work and our policy focus at the foundation. We are going to be doing things like continuing those community conversations. We will have a policy summit coming up on economics at the end of October that our Center for Policy Analysis and Research will be hosting. We have our National Racial Equity Initiative, which is housed within the Center for Policy Analysis and Research. And in November, they will be having a policy session on where we are on racial justice. So those are just some salient examples of what we're going to be doing to keep up the momentum and the focus on these issues. And then lastly, let me add this. I am, before the conference gets underway, I'm actually having a president and CEOs convening. It is a small group convening, but it's a brain trust, if you will, with civil rights, social justice, human rights leaders from around the country for us to lay out a plan for over the year how we are going to be doing collaborative work together. Again, building on what we focus on during ALC. So, Ebony, when I say, like I said at the start of this conversation, we are serious about the business of Black America, of the global Black community. We know that this work cannot be accomplished in 4 days, but we know that it is important for us to continue the drumbeat throughout the year. And those are just some salient examples of how we're going to do that.
I was going to ask you what was next with CBCF, but you just laid out a whole plan. I'm trying to keep the dates in my mind. I'm like, please let me know when that happens, because
We
that is
absolutely will.
amazing that you're doing that. When I was talking with people about, are you going to CBCF, the conference, people were saying, oh, and they were going to the website, they were putting in CBC, and I was like, no, CBCF. I
Yes,
need to
thank
know
you.
the difference.
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
for people
That's
who
right.
can't find it, I'm like, no, it's the foundation.
The
Talk
foundation, exactly.
impacts of CBCF that it's had on policies and issues.
Well, I will tell you one of the things that we put out on a regular basis is our Center for Policy Analysis and Research journal. That journal contains research that is done by scholars, academics, and our own fellows. We have a leadership institute here at the foundation, which we didn't get a chance to talk about, but it's one of the reasons why we were founded, so that we could continue to ensure that we are supplying the next generation of Black leaders throughout the world. And part of our Leadership Institute, we put more Black interns on Capitol Hill than any other organization. We offer myriad scholarships from high school level all the way up through law school and medical school. And we also have several fellowship programs. And our fellows are people who will work on the Hill, but then work with us internally. And they will do research on some of the same issues, Ebony, that you and I have been articulating about throughout this conversation. So that journal is one of the ways that we make sure we are putting out research. But we also, our fellows put out other research papers and white papers throughout the year because we want to make sure that the community has tangible information that they can take back. We want folks to have a playbook for how they resolve some of these problems. And these are resources that we put together and make available to the entire community.
I love that. I love that. So many people are always asking, well, what can I do? Where do I go? I'm going to direct them to
Please do.
CBCF. So
Please do.
where can people go to find more information? I know people want to know about the Phoenix dinner, and then there's a prayer breakfast, and then
Yes.
there's Black Party, so many other things. Where can they go to find out about that and the work that is coming out of this organization? Is it sold out?
Okay. First of all, anything you want to find out about us, you can go to cbcfinc.org. So I'll say that again, cbcfinc.org. That is our website. It has information on the annual legislative conference, but it also has tabs you can click on to learn about our Center for Policy Analysis and Research, our Leadership Institute, the scholarships, the fellowships, the internships. You can go there. Now, in terms of the conference, look, Ebony, everyone is so clear that this is a moment for Black America, that folks were coming out of the woodwork months and months ago to say, I've got to be around the table. So I'm just going to be real frank. The Phoenix Awards, which is the culminating event on Saturday night, it's sold out. I'm sorry.
I know.
I keep telling folks this. We are like the Macy's Day Parade. The day it ends, the next day, we start working on it again for next year. So folks, start reaching out to us early. We want to start reaching out to us early. But now I will say this, the Day of Healing, which was formerly known as the prayer breakfast, is the time when we get together on Saturday morning to focus on faith, to focus on community, and how those things, and it's completely non-denominational, because it's about spirituality and what we need to do to undergird our community and strengthen ourselves. And we're going to have folks from all across the religious communities around the table with us, our friends from the Jewish community, our friends, from the Muslim community. We have folks from everywhere because it's about people coming together and loving each other as people and coming together to say, here's what we have a responsibility to do as a society to take care of one another. So we have tickets and tables available for the Day of Healing, and I encourage and urge people to come out for that. The Black Party is sold out, but we have, but if you register for the conference, there are other things that are available to you. Our Sojourner Truth Legacy event, where we are going to be honoring the Black women leaders in Congress and the work that Black women do. That is going to be available to you. The leadership reception honoring our CBCF board chair, Representative Terry Sewell, who represents the 7th District of Alabama. And folks need to know, one of the major civil rights, voting rights cases that just came down from the Supreme Court is focused on her district.
Yes.
So it's important to be in the room. So if you go to that website and you register, there is still plenty. We got plenty to go around for you to be engaged with us and to not only do work, but to celebrate with us.
Well, I'm so excited that you came on to talk with me. You are always invited back. I want to follow up with all the work that you are doing. That playbook is so important. But Nicole Austin-Hillery, you are just a gem, and thank you for your commitment and the work that you do.
You are welcome, Ebony, and thank you for giving me space to talk about this important work. We really appreciate your partnership and support.
Absolutely.